They told her she didn't belong. They laughed like cruelty was sport, their voices echoing off chrome and tile. But what they didn't know, the woman they were mocking had fought in deserts and mountains halfway across the world, and she didn't lose back then either. Before we begin, make sure you stay to the end of this story, because what happens inside this diner will remind you that silence isn't peace, and respect is never optional. The bell above Charlie's roadside diner gave a tired jingle as Captain Maya Brooks stepped inside, her son Jordan clutching her right hand, her daughter Kayla the left. The neon glow outside flickered pink across the wet asphalt, but inside everything was warm. Smell of bacon, hiss of the griddle, the hum of old country music from a dusty jukebox. 2 kids. One mom, booth or counter? The waitress asked gently. Booth's fine, thank you, Maya said, her voice low, practiced calm. They slid into a corner seat near the window. Jordan immediately began building a syrup tower with pancakes. Kayla laughed softly. For once, Maya allowed herself to exhale. Just one quiet meal before, another long drive, but the peace didn't. Last, boots scraped against the floor. Loud, deliberate. A shadow stretched across their table. Hey. The word cracked through the chatter like a warning shot. Maya looked up. A tall man loomed beside their booth. Thick arms, tattoos snaking up his neck, a leather vest stamped Iron Vulture's MC. His name patch read Troy Maddox. Behind him, a group of bikers watched from the bar, smirking over half-empty beer bottles. You're sitting at the wrong booth, Troy said, voice dripping with mock politeness. Maya blinked once, slow. Didn't see a sign. He leaned closer, the sour smell of whiskey hanging between them. This here's a white-only table, sweetheart. You and your little ones can eat outside. The diner fell silent. Someone near the counter whispered, Don't get involved. Forks hovered midair. Even the jukebox seemed to hold its breath. Kayla's tiny fingers gripped her mother's sleeve. Mama! Maya's expression didn't change. It's okay, baby. Eat your pancakes. Her tone was calm. Too calm. The kind that made soldiers straighten before a storm. Troy slapped the table hard. Plates rattled. I said, Get up. Maya reached for her glass of water, took a slow sip, then set it down. You're blocking my light, she said. A murmur rippled through the room. The bikers laughed, loud and cruel. Feisty, Troy said, grinning. Maybe we should teach her some manners. He leaned closer, finger inches from her face. You deaf or stupid? Maya's gaze didn't waver. Neither, she said quietly. But you're about to make a mistake. The laughter faltered. Something about her voice, flat, disciplined, made the air change. One of the truckers at the counter shifted in his seat, sensing it too. Troy didn't. He only smirked wider. Mistake? Lady, the only mistake you made was walking in here. Maya's eyes flicked briefly to her kids, then back to him. I've walked into worse places than this, she said. The words were calm, but there was weight behind them, because no one in that diner knew who she really was. Not yet. Before this night, Maya Brooks had already survived battlefields, buried comrades, and learned that real war doesn't always happen overseas. Sometimes it's fought right in front of your children, in a diner that still thinks hate has a seat at the table. The laughter came first, low and mocking, like wolves circling prey. Troy leaned one hand on the table, his shadow stretching across Maya's plate. I said this booth's taken, he repeated louder now. You gonna move, or you gonna make this messy for your kids? Maya didn't blink. Her eyes flicked to the reflection in the window. 10 bikers at the counter pretending not to stare, all wearing the same black leather cuts. The Iron Vultures, a name that used to mean trouble in every town they rolled through. She'd faced worse, but her children hadn't. That's what kept her breathing steady. Jordan's fork clinked softly. Mom, he whispered, can we go? Maya's voice was low, firm. We're not the ones who need to leave. The waitress froze behind the counter, a towel hanging limp in her hands. A middle-aged couple in the next booth kept their eyes down. Everyone saw it. Nobody spoke. Troy grinned. You got a mouth on you. Guess you think you're better than us, huh? Maya didn't answer. The only sound was the sizzle of bacon from the kitchen. He slammed his palm against the table again. Bang! Jordan jumped. Kayla whimpered, clutching her mother's arm. Look at me when I'm talking to you, he barked. Slowly, Maya lifted her gaze. Her eyes met his, calm, focused, unshaken. You've had enough chances, she said evenly. Walk away. A hush fell over the diner. Troy laughed, a harsh, ugly sound. Lady, you got no idea who you're talking to. He turned to the others. You believe this? Think she can talk back? One of them, a smaller man with greasy hair and a scar down his cheek, snorted. Ain't no law says we gotta share space with her kind. That word, her kind, landed heavy. It wasn't the first time Maya had heard it, but hearing it in front of her kids felt different. It burned hotter, deeper. She stood, slow and deliberate, her palms flat on the table. Kids, she said softly, go sit with the waitress. Jordan hesitated. Mom, now, she said. Her voice was gentle, but it wasn't a request. They slid out of the booth, clutching each other's hands, eyes wide with fear. The waitress motioned them over, heart pounding. Maya turned back to Troy. This is your last warning. He smirked, stepping closer until she could see the tattoo ink crawling up his neck. Or what? He sneered. You gonna call your husband? Your little church group. The diner felt smaller now, suffocating. A storm about to break. Maya straightened her shoulders, unflinching. I don't need anyone, she said quietly. I can handle you myself. For the first time, Troy hesitated. Just a flicker, barely noticeable. Something in her voice didn't match the fear he expected. It was steady, controlled, the kind of voice used to giving orders and being obeyed. But pride wouldn't let him back down. He jabbed a finger toward her chest. You got 3 seconds, lady. Maya's expression didn't change. Careful, she murmured. You're about to start something you can't finish. And for a heartbeat, even the jukebox went silent. For a second, no one moved. The diner hung in that strange silence that comes before a storm, the kind that hums in your bones. Troy's grin twitched. You threatening me? Maya didn't answer. Her calmness only fed his rage. He turned to his gang. You hear that? She thinks she's tough. Laughter burst from the bar, forced, mean, echoing off the chrome walls. A few patrons glanced toward the door, weighing escape. Nobody left. Nobody helped. Troy's boots creaked as he stepped closer. You really don't want to do this, Maya said softly. Her hand rested flat on the table, steady as a metronome. He slammed his palm beside it, inches away, hard enough to rattle the salt shaker. What's your problem, lady? Can't take a joke? Her voice was even. You crossed the line 5 minutes ago. Behind him, one biker, Dog Harlan, sneered and spat. Ain't no line when you're at our table. He moved toward her kids, his grin dark. Maybe your little ones need to learn some manners, too. That did it. Maya's body shifted, subtle but sharp. Shoulders squared. Weight distributed. The kind of motion only trained eyes would notice. Predator stance. Don't touch them, she said, her tone suddenly deeper. The command carried years of military authority. Even the waitress flinched, but Dog didn't stop. He leaned toward Jordan, muttering, Bet your mama ain't so brave now. Maya stepped between them, fast, almost too fast to see. Step, back. Dog raised both hands, smirking. Or what? Troy chuckled. Oh, I'd love to see what she thinks she can do. The laughter returned. The kind that came from men who had never been told no. Maya inhaled slowly, one deep breath. Her mother used to say, Control your fire before it controls you. Last chance, she said, eyes locked on Troy. He jabbed a finger toward her chest. You talk big for a... He never finished the sentence. Maya's hand snapped upward, a blur of motion. She caught his wrist midair, twisted. The pop was loud. His smirk vanished, replaced by a choked grunt. The room erupted. Dog lunged forward, but Maya pivoted. Pure muscle memory. Sidestepped, grabbed his forearm and used his momentum to throw him into the next booth. Plates shattered. People gasped. Stop! The waitress cried, ducking behind the counter. Troy stumbled back, clutching his arm. What the hell? Maya didn't move. Her stance was perfect. Feet apart, posture tall, breathing slow. Her voice was calm, deadly calm. You wanted to know what I can do. Now you do. The gang froze. Because something had changed. The quiet woman they thought was weak now radiated command. Her kids stared wide-eyed from the corner, but Maya didn't look away from the men. You're done here. she said. "Sit down. All of you." Troy's pride burned hotter than the pain. "You don't give me orders." Maya's reply came steady, every word a warning. "I've given orders to men better than you." And they listened. The diner fell still again. Troy's jaw flexed. He reached slowly toward the knife on his belt. And that's when Maya exhaled. Ready. Not angry, not scared. Ready. Because she knew this wasn't over. Troy's hand hovered near the handle of his knife. One more inch, and the room would bleed. "Don't," Maya said, her voice low but sharp enough to slice air. He smirked, sweat glistening on his forehead. "What are you gonna do, sweetheart? Call the cops?" Behind him, Dog staggered upright, blood trickling from his lip. "She's quick," he muttered. "Too quick." The gang began to fan out, boots scraping tile, eyes mean with embarrassment. Around them, diners sat frozen in their seats, a forest of cell phones rising slowly to record. Maya stood her ground. Her breathing was slow, controlled. 12 years of Marine training reduced to one lesson: stay calm under fire. Troy lunged. The knife glinted under the neon. For a moment, time fractured. The sound of Kayla screaming, the clang of a plate, the reflection of steel flashing in the chrome napkin holder. Then movement. Pure, precise, unstoppable. Maya sidestepped. Her hand caught his wrist mid-strike. One twist. Fast, brutal. The blade flipped from his grip, clattering across the counter. With her other hand, she pressed his shoulder down, locking him in place. The sound of bone-meeting tile echoed through the diner. "Lesson 1, she said softly, her voice calm as if teaching a class. "Never bring a knife to a Marine's table." Dog roared, charging. Maya pivoted, using Troy's body as leverage. Dog's momentum carried him into his leader. Both men crashed to the floor, cursing. The others froze. The sight of two grown men on the ground, beaten by one woman, broke their bravado. "You think you can take us all?" One yelled, but the threat lacked teeth. Maya's eyes stayed on Troy, who was now gasping, humiliated. "I don't need to," she said. "I just need you to stop." Her stance softened, but her voice carried across the room. "Nobody here wants this fight, least of all me. But you picked the wrong mother to threaten." The gang's laughter had vanished. Only heavy breathing and the buzz of neon filled the silence. Then, slowly, Maya reached into the back pocket of her jeans. Every biker tensed. The waitress gasped, but instead of a weapon she pulled out a worn brown wallet. Old leather, edges frayed from years of use. She flipped it open. The diner lights caught on a golden emblem, a U.S. Marine Corps ID, polished and unmistakable. "My name is Captain Maya Brooks, United States Marine Corps, retired," she said, her voice cutting through the silence. 12 years active duty, 3 tours, 2 commendations. And right now, you're interfering with a federal veteran in public space." No one moved. Troy's mouth opened, but nothing came out. Maya took one small step closer, the authority in her tone undeniable. "You think this place belongs to you?" she said. "It doesn't, not anymore." Dog's gaze dropped to the floor. One of the bikers muttered, "Holy hell." The rest of the diner began to breathe again. Forks clinked. Someone whispered, "She's military." Jordan peeked out from behind the counter where he hid with his sister. His eyes shone with something new, pride. Maya caught his gaze, gave a small nod, then turned back to the men still kneeling before her. "Now," she said, her voice firm but level, "pick up your leader and walk out." Troy didn't argue. He rose slowly, eyes downcast, humiliation written across his face. As the gang backed toward the door, Maya exhaled. Steady, calm, resolute. She had fought in deserts and jungles. But this was the kind of battle that left deeper scars, and as the bell above the door jingled behind them, she whispered to herself, "Semper Fi." The door swung shut behind the gang, but the tension didn't leave with them. It hung in the air like smoke, thick and heavy. Forks still hovered, conversation still dead. The only sound was the hum of the old neon sign outside and the trembling breath of a waitress who had just watched something impossible. Maya stayed standing for a moment longer, her body still taut with readiness. She scanned the room, every face, every shaking hand clutching a phone. She'd seen this look before, the stunned disbelief that follows survival, Then she exhaled slowly, lowering herself back into the booth. Her kids rushed to her side, Jordan first, then Kayla, both bearing their faces into her arms. "It's okay," Maya whispered, brushing Jordan's hair back. "It's over." The waitress, a woman in her 40s with tired eyes and trembling fingers, stepped closer. "Ma'am, I already called the police." "They're on their way," Maya nodded. "Good. Leave them outside until I say otherwise." The woman blinked. "You're not afraid they'll come back?" Maya glanced toward the window. Outside, the bikers lingered near their motorcycles, muttering under the flicker of neon. "No," she said simply. "They've already lost." At that, the room began to stir again, whispers spreading like ripples in water. "She's a Marine," someone murmured. "Did you see how she moved?" Another added. The cook peeked out from the kitchen. "You okay, ma'am?" Maya gave him a faint smile. "Better than they are." She stood again, calm, purposeful. The years of command in her voice returned. "Everyone, stay seated. Nobody needs to play hero tonight." Through the window, flashing red and blue lights appeared at the far end of the street. The police, finally arriving. Troy Maddox saw them too. He straightened, trying to shake off his humiliation. "Let's go!" He barked, but his crew hesitated. Some stared at Maya through the glass. Men who'd spent their lives feeling untouchable, now frozen by a single woman's composure. As the cruisers stopped outside, Maya stepped toward the door. The waitress reached for her arm. "Don't go out there, there's still—" But Maya shook her head. "They need to hear me." She pushed the door open. Rain misted against her face, cool and grounding. Troy turned as she approached, clutching his bruised arm. "This isn't over," he growled. Maya's eyes didn't waver. "It was over the moment you picked a fight with the wrong woman." Two officers emerged from the patrol car, hands hovering near their belts. "What's going on here?" Maya flipped open her wallet again, the gold insignia glinting under the diner lights. "Captain Maya Brooks, United States Marine Corps, retired," she said. "These men attempted assault with a deadly weapon in front of witnesses." The taller officer looked at the gang, then back at her, recognition dawning. "Captain Brooks? From Camp Pendleton?" She nodded once. "That's right." The officer straightened instinctively, his tone shifting. "Understood, ma'am." He turned to the bikers. "Hands where we can see them." Dog muttered something under his breath, but one glare from Maya silenced him. Troy tried to protest, but the words caught in his throat. He saw the cameras pressed against the diner window, the phones recording every second. The arrogance that had fueled him all night drained away, replaced by something he hadn't felt in years. Shame. Maya's voice carried across the rain-slicked lot. "You thought respect was about power," she said quietly. "It's about restraint." The police began cuffing the gang, reading their rights. The sound of metal clicking shut echoed through the parking lot like punctuation marks on a lesson too long ignored. Maya turned back toward the diner, her children waiting inside. Jordan smiled through tear-streaked cheeks. "Mom, are they going to jail?" Maya brushed his face gently. "Justice takes time, baby. But it always comes." As the bikers were led into the patrol cars, the waitress whispered from behind her, "You really are something else." Maya smiled faintly, her eyes still fixed on the flashing lights. "No," she said. "I just stopped letting hate sit at my table." The diner had quieted again, but this time the silence was different. Not the fearful kind. The reverent kind that follows after truth finally speaks. Maya stood by the door, the glow of red and blue lights washing over her like distant lightning. The officers finished loading the last of the bikers into patrol cars. Troy Maddox sat in the back seat, head bowed, his knuckles white around nothing. Inside, people were finally breathing again. The waitress, the same woman who'd been too afraid to move an hour ago, began wiping tables with trembling hands. She looked at Maya and whispered, You could have hurt them. Why didn't you?" Maya's gaze softened. "Because that's what they expected," she said. "And I don't give hate what it wants." She turned back toward her kids. Jordan was sitting upright now, his chin high, his little sister leaning against him. They weren't crying anymore. They were watching her, studying her, the way recruits watch their commanding officer. Maya crouched beside them. "You two okay?" Jordan nodded slowly. "You didn't even flinch, Mom." She smiled faintly. "Flinching doesn't help anyone. Staying calm does." He tilted his head, thinking. "Were you scared?" Maya hesitated. just a heartbeat. Then she said quietly, "Yeah, but being brave doesn't mean you're not scared. It means you stand anyway." The boy's eyes glimmered with something new, not just pride, but understanding. Across the room, the cook approached, hat in hand. "Ma'am," he said, voice low, "I've been working here 15 years. I've seen things, but nothing like that. You made us all see ourselves tonight." Maya gave a polite nod. "Then don't forget it tomorrow." Outside, one of the officers returned. "Captain Brooks," he said carefully, "we've taken statements from everyone. You and your family are free to go, but—" "Ma'am?" She looked up. "I just wanted to say, thank you for your service and for how you handled that." Maya's expression didn't change, but something in her shoulders eased. "Appreciate it, officer. Just doing what needed to be done." He tipped his hat slightly before walking off. When Maya stepped out into the night, the rain had stopped. The air smelled clean, fresh pavement, diesel, and quiet. She guided her children toward their truck, the old Ford humming like an old friend when she turned the key. From the diner door, the waitress called after her, voice breaking slightly, "You ever come back here?" "Your table's on the house," Maya smiled. "Next time, let's make it one where nobody needs to fight." The woman nodded, tears in her eyes. As they drove away, the neon sign faded in the rearview mirror, flickering between letters, open and hope. Jordan looked out the window and whispered, "Mom, do people like that ever change?" Maya kept her eyes on the road, her voice calm. "Maybe not all at once," she said, "but one moment of truth can change a whole town." The highway stretched ahead, long and quiet. And for the first time in a long time, Maya Brooks, U.S. Marine, mother, survivor, felt something she hadn't felt in years. Peace. The road stretched before them, long and wet from the rain. The headlights carved quiet paths through the mist. Maya's hands stayed steady on the wheel, but her mind wasn't on the drive. It was on everything that had just happened. For years, she had faced war zones, but tonight felt heavier. There was something about fighting hate on home soil that carried a different kind of weight. Jordan broke the silence first. "Mom? Yeah, baby? Are you mad at them?" Maya thought for a moment before answering. "No," she said softly. "I'm sad for them. Why?" Kayla asked from the back seat, voice small and curious. "Because people who hate others forget who they are," Maya said. "They live their whole lives scared of what they don't understand, and that fear turns them mean." The kids sat quietly, letting her words sink in. Outside, the glow of the town faded into countryside darkness. She could still see the faces of the people inside that diner, the ones who stayed silent, afraid to speak up. That haunted her more than the gang ever could. At the next red light, Maya reached into the glove compartment and pulled out her military tag, the edges worn smooth. She ran her thumb across it. "I fought overseas to protect freedom," she murmured. "But tonight reminded me that sometimes the real fight is right here." Jordan leaned closer. "You think they'll remember you?" Maya smiled faintly. "I hope they remember themselves." She turned down the familiar road leading home, her headlights catching puddles that shimmered like silver. By the time they reached the driveway, both kids had fallen asleep. Maya sat there for a moment watching them breathe, peaceful, unguarded. She brushed a hand through Jordan's hair, whispered, "You made me proud tonight," and carried him inside. The house was quiet. She tucked them in, kissed their foreheads, and stood in the doorway for a long moment, the hum of the fridge the only sound. Her phone buzzed. It was a message from June, the waitress. "June, they're replaying the security footage on the news. People are calling you a hero." Maya stared at the screen, her reflection faint in the dark window. She typed back slowly, "I'm not a hero. I just didn't back down." She set the phone down and looked out at the quiet night. Somewhere across town, that neon diner sign was still flickering. Maybe tomorrow people would walk in with a little more courage. Maybe someone would speak up sooner. For the first time in years, Maya allowed herself to smile, not out of pride, but relief. Justice wasn't about power. It was about peace earned through presence. She turned off the lights and whispered, "Semper Fi," always faithful. Outside, dawn crept over the horizon, the kind that promised change. If this story moved you, don't scroll away. Hit like, share this story with someone who still believes courage changes things, and comment always faithful below. Because real strength isn't about fighting, it's about knowing when to stand tall.